today I was journaling.
Yes.
And I've been starting these journaling exercises that are different from the journaling that I normally do, which is like, doesn't really matter because like nobody's reading about doing anything with it. But I learned in this book that I'm reading called The Artist's Way. I told you about it.
Yes.
Yeah, The Spiritual Path to Creativity. I'm really excited about it. I learned that a lot of our creativity, for artists, it's not lost. It's like pretty much like clouded. Like I almost imagine like it's like clumped on, like too much mascara.
Sure.
Almost.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to kind of like wash the mascara off and like start over. And so what it basically is like a brain dump is like the journaling style that I've been like trying out. And the thought is if you pretty much brain dump or just like get what's in your mind out into the paper, or if you're in an app or on a computer, out into the page every day, then that just like clears up your mind to be more creative, which makes total sense. Yeah. But it's not just like doing it one day. Obviously, it's the compound effect and like do it day after day after day. And you become naturally more creative. There are a lot more steps to that, but I'm just getting started. So anyway, today, obviously purpose was on my mind, and because I knew we were going to talk about it today. It's something that's been on my mind here recently, because that's really what I've been leaning into this year. I didn't start the year out like, I'm going to find my purpose. Although that has kind of been the journey that I've been on. I did start the year out with my word being like intentional. I'm going to not every step I do, but everything I do is going to be with intention and just raising the level of intention that I have in my overall life, because I know that intention's really important. How I do things is just as important, if not more important than what I'm doing. And the reason why is because of purpose. So I can expand more, but I was journaling today and I was thinking about that and I was like, purpose. So, when we talked about in our last episode about purpose, how it's not so much a doing, it's more of it's also a being. So that's like old news to us, right? But it's not old news from an intellectual. I mean, it's old news from an intellectual standpoint. It's not old news from a being standpoint. I'm still like stepping into, what does that really look like? Do I need to how do I play with that? Like, I realized that when you find your purpose in life, I used to think I need to do this thing. Like, this is my mission. I'm going to be a whatever. When I was little, I wanted to be a children's book writer who also did the illustrations. I don't think I ever told you that.
No.
Yeah. I wanted to do that so badly. And I was like, that would be so cool. And I thought that just kids who love to read, that's what they wanted to do. So I didn't think it was anything special. And I was just like, I just want to write the book and I want to be the one who draws the book, because I think that's freaking cool. And I know I can do it because I'm really good at both those things. As 5 years old, right? I'm really good at drawing and I'm really good at writing.
Yes.
So I was thinking about it, and I was talking to my friend the other day, and she's like, not every 5-year-old wants to be a children's book writer, Jacqueline.
Right.
Like, really?
No.
So anyway, I'm not a children's book writer. I don't know if that's in the cards for me. I'm not saying I want to do that. What I'm saying is that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so when I think about purpose, I was like, oh, it's a vocation. It's what you do, or it's like a strong hobby. So that's the path that I've been on. What am I supposed to do with my life? And when I stepped back recently, I went into the year thinking about how intentional I wanted to be. When I stepped back and thought about what actually happened this year, so every year at the end of the year, doing a self-reflection, what did I do this year? What were the themes? What was it about? What did I learn? I just think it's important when I think about my growth. It's fun to reflect. And I realized it was very different than years past, whereas in years past, I'd had a list of all the things I'd accomplished.
Yeah.
Last year was I had a book chapter published. It was cool. I had this podcast started with you, I started this cool job and had been gotten promoted and doing all these things. And this year there wasn't any doing. I mean, I did a race, but the race wasn't cool because I finished it. The race was cool because of the experience and the level of intensity that I like intentionally trained for leading up to that race. So I felt like a badass during that race. It was the best race I've ever run, longest race I've ever run. And I didn't injure myself. Like that is being. And this year I like traveled, and it wasn't so much like, oh, we checked off these places on our list. It was like, no, like I got to experience my core value of adventure and my core value of connection and peace with people that I just love so much. And so this year made me realize that I'm like falling into a new way of being. And it's definitely a level change. It's definitely something. So I think about like being and purpose are pretty synonymous. And so that's where my mind has been recently. I know you and I've been kind of throwing things back and forth about what purpose really is. And I know a lot of people who listen are interested in what is purpose. And I think everyone that you ask will tell you something a little different, but along the same lines.
The modern woman knows how powerful she is and creates her world with passion.
She's intentional about how she leads her life, who she supports, and who she brings around her.
She's not afraid to dream big. She defines success for herself and pursues what's on her heart.
Even when we don't have all the answers.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that there's any like one definition for purpose, but I just think that's something, especially as women, that we've definitely been taught is important. And so I think what I love about what you just said was well, first of all, I love the fact that you even take the time to do like an end of the year reflection. That's amazing. I'm definitely doing that this year. Secondly, the thing that I loved was the way that you talked about purpose as a being. I think often, and we've talked about this too, and you mentioned it, it's typically a vocation, but I love how you put it, that your purpose is more about being. And it was like, when you did that race, it wasn't about checking off and accomplishing as many races this year, or you did better than you did last year. Like it was more just about existing in that moment and being proud of yourself and doing something that lights you up. And I think that's amazing. So more on that being component, like how are you able to know when you are doing things that are based on your definition of being, right? Because to the point of just purpose as a topic in general being something that is widely discussed when talking about women, and growing up as a woman, I feel like it's been so important. And so now viewing it and hearing you talk about it as being, now it's distinguishing, like, how do I know if this is true for me? Like, how do I know that what I am doing in my career or just daily tasks, how are you able to distinguish that you are being and it's feeling more true to you versus the like external influences that are impacting it?
I love that thought. It's such a good question because it's the most annoying answer that I always give you for things is that it's different for everyone.
It's not annoying. It's true. Yeah.
It's like, how do you know it's true for you? Well, it's different for everyone. And I'm referring to how different people experience intuition. And
I'm asking about you.
Yeah. No. I totally get that. No, I appreciate that. I will share. So for me, it's a feeling. I experience my intuition through feeling. So I can feel when it's right and it's not right. But I couldn't always feel it. And even though I knew intellectually in my head that like, oh, I'm a feeler, like I should, if things feel true, then they're true. I didn't always know what that feeling of trueness was. You know, I had to practice like, okay, is this true? Is this, and then like, I would take the path that felt true. And sometimes I'm not saying it wasn't the path that felt true. Sometimes things didn't work out as I thought they should. And so then, okay, then you pivot and all the things. But I will say this, I think that purpose is the grandest act of creativity. And here's why. It's because, and we've said this before, but we're always creating. And every act that we do, whether it's breathing or moving or sending an email, everything we do is an act of creativity. So what are we creating with intention or not? And is that intention really like aligned with what's true for us? And when it is, I think that's purpose. Like when we're on the path of our purpose, that's when it feels fulfilling. And I think that's the game changer, is the fulfillment piece, because you can create all day long and do things, but is it something that, one, we're like noticing that we're even doing, and two, is it on the right path? And I'm not saying it right or wrong, but is it on the path that's for us? Does it feel like right for us? I know that you're feeling it too. And if it does, then it's usually like really fulfilling, and that feeling lasts, and it builds on to next act of creation and the next act of creation, which like brings usually this like grander purpose. And I'm not saying everyone has to have this big, huge purpose, but like everything you do in your life has a compound effect. And then that like whole life is your purpose. So that's why I'm like, purpose is really a way of being, and what you choose to do with your time is your purpose.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Can you give like an example of what that might look like, or what that has looked like in your life? Like where you've kind of witnessed that ripple effect, or you've like seen that compound effect happen?
Yeah. And I'm still like, as soon as I learn more about myself, I'm always like, oh, there's so much more that I haven't learned. Like that whole thing, like you know what you don't know on an even bigger scale. So for me, it's like stressful to be like, oh my gosh, like I've arrived. Nope. I now know more than ever that I have not. And, but what I will say is that, so for me personally, when something feels true to me, it's either a feeling of like contentment and fulfillment, or, like satisfaction. So when something's presented to me and I'm, like, oh yes, that's right for me. That's how it feels. When I take the action, I quickly know usually whether or not it is right and truly good, because things usually work out. And I'm not saying if I run into roadblocks, it's not what worked out, but I quickly know how to like pivot. So an example of that, I'll say my latest big career change. And there's so many big and little things that have happened since then, but that's like the one I can think about right now, Bri. When I joined Growth Day, so I've had a career in HR and talent recruiting, and switching jobs is like, for me, career has been a huge part of what I do, and I really, really, truly enjoy it. But switching jobs is like, can be very stressful, because you don't know all the things, and you don't know what you don't know about career. And I've coached so many people on career, like they all say the same thing, and I'm not excluded from that. And so when I'm joining Growth Day, even though it is like the most perfect, what I think is like leadership situation and like team situation and things that I really like to do, all signs internally point to yes. There's still a lot of unknown. So it's a risk. So anyway, I joined, and then I'm not saying that it was easy work at all, but the path definitely unfolded, and it is very satisfying. The building it made sense. It was intuitive for me, and it is deeply fulfilling. Like what the work that I'm doing, the feeling like lasts, and it is compound. This is kind of a bigger example because it was a big life change for me. And I'm totally talking about vocation when it comes to purpose, which is what I just said was not, but that was like a really big concrete example. I'll also give a maybe not so concrete example when it comes to being and purpose. And this past year, I think one of the reasons why I didn't have all these like accomplishments on my self-reflection list was because I felt I was very tired after building last year in all the areas. And I felt like internally just the need to rest, to chill. And I still worked, I still parented and did all the things, but not so hard, like don't go so hard. And so instead of doing what I normally do, which is like accomplishing and doing things, I spent time purposefully like reading things that I wanted to learn about and like building skill that way, taking courses on things I wanted to learn about, chilling and playing and traveling and doing absolutely nothing that you can like put on a like accomplishment board.
Yes.
Like just hanging out with my people, like as in my family, my 3 kids, and my husband, and that feeling of fulfillment, like where we are today in terms of being connected and the joy that I have just from like nurturing myself in that way, my energy, my physical well-being, my relationships. That is a new level of being in purpose that I wouldn't trade for anything. So I don't know if that is, again, that's not as a concrete example, but that's when it comes to purpose, it's like, it's ever changing, but I also get to define it myself. Like if I want to have a peaceful life where it's fun and adventurous, and I also work on cool things, that is what I get to do. If I just wanted to chill and like, I probably could figure a way to just do that.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think in here recently, especially, where I'm in self-reflection time, I'll also take another step back. I watched a movie recently where, the whole Scrooge story.
Yes.
The Scrooge story where like Scrooge is a very nice man and the ghosts come and visit him and help him, reevaluate his life and change for the better. I'm not saying I'm Scrooge, but I've been just reevaluating even on a, higher, deeper level. And so my colleague actually this week, I'm prompted, was like, this is something these are questions I've been asking myself to help myself like lean in deeper to where I'm going and get clarity in my life. And I was like, well, this is just perfect. This is exactly what I'm in right now. And he shared something he called the 4 helpfuls. And I wrote it down because I was using it. And so the first one was what's right in my life, like celebrating what's going well. Second thing was what's wrong or off. And I love how that's worded because it's like, what's off? It doesn't have to be something to fix.
Right.
The third one was what's missing.
Mm.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept too, for a different reason. And then 4, what's confusing. And I loved it because it gave a lot of open space to just be with those areas. I don't often just sit back and contemplate that deeply. And I realized I've been confused a lot this year on where I was going in this very thought of purpose. And taking a second to relax and figure out like direction and all of that was really important. Because you and I are both here because we do want to make an impact and we do want to see ripple effect and like mainly in my circle, but if I can support other people as well, like amazing. And I know there are a lot of women who are on that same path. And I've tried to ignore the call, but I just can't, Bri. I just can't.
It's part of you.
It's part of you. So that's my sermon.
Yeah. Amazing sermon. Amen. Love it. You talk a lot about deciding and then doing. So it sounds really simple, but basically even in your description of being, it really is about action that is aligned action, essentially, right? So how did you get there, right? I know you constantly talk about up-leveling and changing and tell me more about like your story of going from like being, your being was purpose and devotion. So it was what you did. And that was like more about your worth, right? Was related to your accomplishment. Tell me more about like that unraveling experience. And I know we're like, even if you're in the midst of it or you're starting it, like it's not about like being perfect and being at the end, but just like talk a little bit about that like unraveling part to then decide I want to incorporate more rest. I want to like, it looks a lot different. Is that just like an intuitive thing that came, or were there specific scenarios that happened throughout your career or throughout life or with your family that like made you kind of change that definition?
That is such a good question. I say that because I'm like, it's a hard one.
I know it is hard and there's no right answer, but I'm just curious to like how you've, other than like, you know, doing your reflection, like that's amazing at the end of the year. Those 4 questions, amazing way to just kind of reflect without needing to fix. But is there anything else that's kind of been a part of your process?
Yeah. So yes, achieving is a part of me. That's obvious. I'm sure a lot of people listening relate. Growing up, achieve, in career, achieve, and that got me where I wanted to go for the most part. I will say, and even last year, starting my new role, achieving was the key to feeling successful. And I think output will always be important when you're in any kind of work. I mean, you produce something, but I noticed a couple of things. I noticed that one, I was exhausted, like I was tired, and my energy was not what I wanted it to be. I was just tired.
Yeah.
So I'd show up to like meetings and I knew that there was like another level of vitality that I wanted for myself, that I wanted for my family. I would show up to work and just like, I would do it and I would take care of myself and eat healthy and all the things, but I would be like so tired at the end of the day, and my family wouldn't get the best of me either. And
Mm-hmm.
so that just like was like a constant like tired cycle. And I was like, okay, I'm tired of being tired. I want to figure out how to do this a little bit better. And be more just, I want to be like just glowing, and
Yeah.
nothing ever arrived at any spot, but I've been working really hard on it. Hard as in not so hard.
Yes.
Hard and not working so hard. And so that was part of it. I wanted to feel better. And also I felt like I was kind of on a hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely reflected this to me before, and I appreciate it. Like, Jacqueline, you do all the things. And I was doing all the things because I could,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't exactly sure where I was going. So it
Right.
caused me to just like, okay, if I don't know where I'm going and I'm going, I don't know where fast, like I should slow down. And while I'm still going at a much slower pace, like change my GPS or at least like
Yeah.
X out of that one and like find a new address. So those were the 2 reasons why mainly. And so I did. I just kind of like pumped the brakes,
Mm-hmm.
started taking care of myself better, even better than I was. And I thought like I had like perfect routine, right? And I was like, I can up level this. So spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, all the leads. And then just started listening to what I was hearing in it wasn't silence because I was still going, but in the slowness,
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard a lot of different things. And that's what helped me confirm that I did, in fact, need to slow down. I started feeling better. My energy started changing for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started feeling more confident in the little decisions that I was making along the way. So I decided then that I never wanted to go back to that, like running on a hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And so then I'm okay, if I don't want that, then where am I going? And it was really clear actually after spending a whole 3/4 of the year trying so hard to like hear a special message. And it, I realized all along that I knew. Like you asked me, actually, we were sitting on a rooftop in Nashville. You're like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to do this. And you and I were talking about Modern Woman. And now I can honestly say, like, with confidence that all aspects of my, like what I'm doing now is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
that's amazing.
bonus.
Yes.
That is success, my love.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's amazing. I am curious if you were talking to your 10-year-old self and you were giving them like advice on being and what's to come, what would you say?
Say what you want to say, even if people make fun of you.
Oh, yes.
I know it's so simple, but I was actually thinking about that last week. I was like, what did little version of me, like, where'd she go? What happened? And I think she just started getting embarrassed and she didn't feel supported. And she stopped saying what she wanted to say because either she didn't feel the support or it was hard or it was against the grain. And yeah, I go against the grain. I know a lot of people who, and not in a loud way anymore, but I just know a lot of people who are listening and attracted to that kind of energy are like pioneers a little bit in their field and what they do. And they do things a little differently than the mainstream, most of the people around them. They feel a little different. And that's how I felt. And so I would tell her, just say it, like, just do it, no matter what anybody else is saying about you or thinking about you.
Yeah. Be different.
Yeah. Be different.
Yeah. Be different.
That's so great. So
amazing. Well, is there anything else that you want to add or talk about your being, existence, your authenticity, your way of moving that you haven't already shared?
I think you and I have hit this point over and over again. And I don't want it to sound cliche, but the best thing that anyone can be is themselves. And
yeah,
I still, like, the more I unravel, the more I'm like, there's more. And so I'm excited to meet myself a year from now. And I wish that for everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Modern Woman Show, where we are becoming our truest selves. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend. And remember to subscribe to the show on YouTube and show us some love on Instagram at The Modern Woman Show.